Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. I'm Dr. Joe Hamlett, and alongside me, as always, can't get rid of this guy, Dr. Dave Peltz. How you doing, Dr. Dave?
Pretty good. I mean, we could make arrangements.
No, it's all in fun. Again, we've been doing this for a long time, and I think we're grown to that point where we can kind of tease each other every
Yeah,
now and then.
poke the
So.
bear, poke the bear every now and then.
Right. So welcome back. If you have been here before, as always, this is our personal, professional, and career development podcast. And so we do thank you for tuning in. And for those of you who are new, and this is your first time, hopefully you'll gain something from this experience and you'll want to come back for future episodes. So, with all the introductions out of the way and the pleasantries, we're going to jump right into our topic like we normally do. The person who initiates or starts the podcast introduces the topic as well. So I am in that position today, and Dave is going to be on the hot seat. So today, our topic is challenging comfortable patterns. So,
Hmm.
Dave, when we talk about challenging comfortable patterns, where do we want to start with that?
Well,
What
I think you
comes
kind
to
of did it in the
mind?
intro when you poked the bear.
Okay, well, I was on the right track. So,
No, but challenging comfortable patterns. We talked about this topic a little bit before we started the podcast, and it's kind of interesting because we try to relate things to personal, professional, and career development. And this is another one of those topics where we can do that. Interestingly enough, um, we this just happened to me recently. My son asked me and my wife if we'd like to go to a a tribute band concert with him and his wife. And now bear in mind, it's probably been 10, 15 years since I've stayed up past 10 o'clock, let alone go to a concert that starts at 8. And it was a hard rock concert. I'm from that generation that liked the old hair bands and all that stuff. And so we went, and I realized I used to be comfortable doing that sort of thing, and I found myself being a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm like, so what can I do to challenge, even though it's uncomfortable, what can I do to challenge myself to make it comfortable again? And it's kind of the opposite perspective right now. And we went through and had a great time. And then when I started thinking to myself, challenging comfortable patterns, what would have been comfortable for me? What would have been comfortable for me is to stay home and avoid, the dark streets, even with all the police presence and security and stuff, with all the people going around. That was challenging my comfortable pattern, is getting back out there amongst all those people and going into a room with 300 people and sitting in there and having a good time. That was not me. That hasn't been me for a long time, since I was, a young pup in the military. So I challenged that comfortable pattern and actually had a good time and learned, hey, this can be done. So when we put that into perspective of the workplace, let's say, like me, you're a little bit of an introvert, and networking is something that you kind of have to push yourself out a little bit. So my comfort zone is, small networking, meeting new people. Well, several months ago, I had the opportunity to go to a networking event. My comfortableness is meeting one on two, small groups, three, four, five.
right.
And this was a large networking event. That was probably 100 people there. So I challenged my comfortable pattern to go to a bigger networking event, and some good things came out of it. I met some new people, got some new experience, and learned about what's going on in the community. So, we talk about personal, professional, and career development. That's one of those things. What do you find is comfortable for you, and what can you challenge? When can you challenge that comfortableness to potentially find some benefits or some rewards or some new experiences to help you in your personal and professional life? My personal life, had a great time with my family. My
Right.
professional life, met some great colleagues and peers, some new colleagues and peers, and some business opportunities. So by stepping out of your comfort zone, those comfortable patterns, there are opportunities for you to take advantage of.
Dave, you touched on a few things that a lot of us probably experience, just that uncomfortableness, that I'm just similar to you as far as being an introvert. I'm not that social butterfly that can go into a room and just, everybody's your friend. You're the life of the party. You feel really good in your skin about being in that situation. And you touched on it for the professional environment. That's one of the things I've been doing for the last probably 10 years of my career, working career, is to network with people, to engage with people. And even though I've done it on a regular basis, it's still not that comfortable place for me as much as it you would think it should be. But I'll just touch on some of the things that have helped me. When I go into a room, like you say, there's a room full of people. I try to put on the facade that smiley face, inviting to people. So because there's a lot of people just like me walking around that room wondering, uh, where can they go hide? How long is this going to take? Can I go home?
Is it
So
done
that's
yet?
yeah. I mean, looking at your clock, like, oh, man, it just started. So I find myself when, like I say, when I go into an environment where I don't know people, again, I try to smile, I try to be inviting, and then from there, I can see as I'm walking toward people, I can see, it's inviting to them, and they'll smile, they'll say, "Hey, how you doing?" So that's how I start when I engage in that type of environment. The next thing I do is start small talk. If I'm sitting next to someone in an event that I don't know, I may say, "Hey, have you been to one of these events before? Hey, you know what company do you work for? What have you experienced this before? Do you like these?" I mean, I just try to start some small talk to get people, again, to help them break down their barriers as well. But those are a couple of things I do, just to get me started. And before you know it, you're bouncing around the room, engaging in different conversations with different people, or sometimes people overhear things, or you overhear things, and you go start conversations with other people.
Yeah, that reminds me of a meme I saw online the other day where and it was focused towards leadership. It says insecure leaders or managers surround themselves with yes people. Comfortable leaders or secure leaders surround themselves with people who will challenge the ideas to make things better. And that's a kind of a big thing in leadership, because if you're uncomfortable in a leadership or management position, you surround yourself with yes people. There is a context there that maybe you don't have enough experience or knowledge to be a leader or manager. So you surround yourself with yes people as an insulator to help protect you in a way. So in that scenario, I would I would challenge that person to step out of that comfortable pattern, challenge that comfortable pattern, and start surrounding yourself with people who do challenge you. And then challenge that pattern again, instead of taking all the yeses, and and listen to those challenges on how we can make things better on that team, in that department, in that organization, because there's a lot to be learned there. I'm not saying if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What I am saying is listen to your people, listen to those around you, or if you're a subject matter expert, same scenario. You don't even have to be a leader. Just surrounding yourself with people who agree with you. That group think that we've talked about before. What does that dynamic team look like if it's not dynamic?
Well, yeah, Dave, you bring up a good point. I think part of the challenge is, for some people, is recognizing those things, though,
Hmm.
recognizing that they're that
That is
person.
that, yeah, that is that pattern. Yeah.
Right, that that I fit into that pattern, or I'm more comfortable with people that yes all the time, versus, so that takes a little bit of self-awareness and understanding the impact that's having on you. So a lot of people may not get there because they don't recognize that that's an issue or a concern, especially if no one says anything about it, no one ever challenges it, or no one ever speaks up. Then that person may go on for years, with that same mentality, that same approach. And a lot of times that shows up when people are constantly leaving that leader,
Right.
moving on to another organization, just because rather than challenge it, or they don't feel like it's worth it, or that it's not going to change, then a lot of them will just leave versus bringing it up and being confident that that leader will accept that. And so I think that's the challenging part of that is, yeah, you may be that person, but you may not recognize that you're that person.
Yeah, and another thing I saw the other day that really kind of piqued my interest was if you accept status quo, that's one step above failing. And I
Right.
was like, wow, that's kind of when you start peeling that one back, there's a lot to that. So if you accept status quo as being good or great, that's like saying I accept a C minus as my A
Right.
plus.
Yep.
So challenge these patterns. Do the reflection, not just a critical self-reflection, but what about a team reflection? Look at your team, look at your peers, look at your leaders, look at your subject matter experts, look at the people who are flailing, that are not doing so well, that are just doing the minimum. What can you do to help them become better instead of just letting them do what they're doing and just doing the bare minimum? And that's okay. You mentioned something about one of the tools that you use about starting small talk when you network. And I think that is so great because we've talked about this before as well. Finding that common ground with people to
Right.
start that
Yeah.
small talk, going into an interview and before the interview starts, if there's a sports team, memorabilia or something like that, or there's family, or there's, you know, family dog, or, a big project or awards, start the small talk around that. Hey, I see you have a this degree or this certification. Oh, how, what kind of dog is that? Is that your dog?
Yeah.
No, I think found him. That was a stray, so
Right. Right.
that's why I have 20 of them. So, finding that common ground, just that basic common interest is a huge tool for starting that conversation. And that was something I avoided the other night when I went to the concert. It's like I didn't want to challenge. I'd already challenged myself once. Why go too
Right.
far that evening? So you don't have to over challenge yourself, but take small steps to work towards the bigger picture. And I think the networking piece and finding the common ground is a key element. When you go in, survey that room, see who you might feel comfortable with. Not will, might feel comfortable with having a conversation or an introduction. And that's where it all starts. It's just
Right.
cracking that
Yeah.
wheel, putting that wedge in there, and then just start opening that circle up so you can meet more people.
No, I think that's a good point. Starting with that observation and seeing where you might fit in, where you again maybe walking by overhear a conversation about something that you have interest in, and that's an easy starter. If we go back to our challenges again, though, it's that group that you may not have anything in common with, that group that doesn't immediately appeal to you. That's
Right.
where you start the real work, is
Mm-hmm.
stepping outside of that pattern, because again this is typical, as a veteran, you walk in a room, you start to put together, who you assume is a veteran just by the way they handle themselves, how they carry themselves, their awareness, and those sometimes are the people that you immediately go up to, and start that conversation, that small talk, and you typically you're correct because you can kind of see that or sense that. But the challenge is going to someone outside of that
Right.
norm, that pattern that you're used to, that you're comfortable with, going up to someone that you can have a sense that they weren't in the military, or
Mm-hmm.
but even if they were, they don't present themselves that way. That's the challenge when you can go up and start that small talk with an individual outside of that pattern that you're used to. So I think that's once like you said, you had already overcome one of your patterns, so you you were in a position that you felt like you could go and continue.
Yeah.
But I that's what I would recommend to people that are, say you're at an all day event, some type of networking event. Start bouncing around. Like I said, maybe you do a couple of those comfortable ones to give you that courage and confidence to step into one of those not so comfortable and break that pattern of, okay, these are easy ones. Let's try
Mhm.
some hard ones.
Yeah, and I like that because you know you can start even looking at that from the generational perspective because we have
Yep.
four generations in the workplace right now.
Yep.
Well, probably coming up on five because the
Right.
alphas are jumping in. So, when we look at that, you know, us being the Gen Xers that we are, what about engaging the younger generations? That can be a challenge for us because we're used to talking and communicating with people that are of our generation or one or two above or below.
Right.
So what can we learn from the new employees? What can we learn from the new managers that are just getting out of college or these new people that are getting out of the trade school? Did they find a better way to do it? With all
Right.
the electronic devices, I'm meeting people all the time. I shouldn't say all the time. That sounds weird. That are working on my house because it's dilapidated. No, it's not. But a new AC unit or something like that. It's like
Right.
they're out there with digital devices,
Yep.
that are scanning, all the electrical from just a picture. And what can we learn from that side of things? And pulling that thread just a little bit more, if you're comfortable with a certain software application, challenging yourself to get away from that to try the new
Yep.
software application that's in your workplace or the new electronic or computer devices that's going to make your job a lot easier if you just step away from those comfortable patterns and go through the learning curve.
Yep. Well, I'll go back to one of my common sayings that, that I say on the podcast quite often, and that is keeping your mind open to the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that allows you to do exactly what you just said. Try new software, try, different situations. Talk to someone, like say, not in your generation, to learn from them. And that's why I think I've, continue to grow, continue to develop, is because I use that approach in every situation. Like I say, going out in my previous roles here, um, going out and meeting new people from all walks of life. Even us on the podcast, having international guests. Just again, keeping our mind open to the possibilities of where this could lead. And I think that's. I know it's sometimes maybe feel like you're throwing caution to the wind, but at the same time, you're not limiting yourself. You're not putting restrictions on yourself to not do that because it's again not a normal pattern for you, but to view it as what can I gain from this? And I think you touched on that a little bit before. What can I gain from this situation? Even if it's a bad situation, what can I glean from this that'll help me for future interactions like this? So that's again, it can still be considered a learning, gaining something from it if we approach it that way. If we don't just go into it, well, this is out of my comfort zone. I just can't wait to get home. If you have that approach, then you don't gain anything. The only thing you're going to gain is, oh, I don't want to do that again. That was painful. Versus, okay, this experience was uncomfortable, but what were some of the good things out of it? Did I meet some new people? Like you said, you that networking event, you went to that event not really wanting to go, but you walked away with some valuable things, business opportunities, meeting new people. That's all that there's always a positive from that uncomfortable situation if you let it be that way. It can stay, yeah, it can stay negative. It can be on the opposite side. But if you're willing to shift your thinking, shift your position on whatever occurred, you can still make it a positive experience and gain something from it to moving forward.
Yeah, and that talks, you just tapped into another topic that we talk about, and that's that that lifelong learning piece.
Yep.
Whether it's formal education, informal education, casual education, you know, that's all learning, and that's stepping either inside or outside of your comfort zone. You can step out, you can challenge your comfort zone, the comfortable pattern of just sticking to this XYZ field and just being very narrow. But if you're not happy, challenge that comfortable pattern and find something else that you might enjoy. And maybe that's going to lead you away from that constant negativity and create other opportunities for you. You know,
Right.
that is a big thing for you and I, is that lifelong learning piece. Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we're at today. You
Right.
know, that challenging, that comfortable pattern of, well, why do I need an education? No one else is getting an education. I don't need an education. This is a lot easier. I don't want to do all that extra work. But
Right.
challenging that mentality, that comfortable pattern to say, hey, I'm going to break away from that just for a little bit, dip my toe in the pool and just try this for a while. And
Right.
then again, and then see the possibilities that start coming out of that.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Going back to when I started that journey, that education journey, that's really what it was. Okay, I'm going to try this. And fortunate for me, I really enjoyed it, and it excited me about the next thing and the next thing. And that's why I say, like you said, the lifelong learning thing. That's what that all stemmed from. Just that stepping out of my comfort zone or that normal pattern and saying, okay, I am going to do this. And it has led to so much more. And we've talked about this before too. Now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. I can't turn it off. And that leads to having all these ideas in my head, keeping me up at night. So that's you're right. That lifelong learning piece. That's the way I view things. So, even, like I say, even if it's a situation that may not be the best or may not be comfortable, I can still take something away from that that can
Mhm.
be applied to a future state or to, my own well being of, viewing this as not a failure, but a success. And so it really it goes back to, again, do you put yourself in that victim state or that victor state?
Mhm.
I'm gaining something from this, even though I'm outside of my comfortable pattern.
Mhm. Yeah, and talking about that comfortable pattern, when I was talking with military during their transition from military to civilian status, um, re- transitioning into society, or going back into normal society, a lot of the questions were, well, what do I do when I get out? I don't like what I'm doing here. And my question to them was, what do you want to do? What do you like to do?
Right.
You know, you've been doing what's comfortable for you for X number of years. Challenge that pattern. What do you enjoy? This is your opportunity to pursue a passion or something that's fun, or a hobby that will turn into your own business. You know, the the trades, I cannot express enough how important those are today, because the workplace is oversaturated with college degrees, and that's not a bad thing, but it has left a huge gap on the trade side, or just jobs that all you need is a certification or an apprenticeship that's paid for. You know,
Right.
that's your opportunity to get a certification, to take on an apprenticeship, to go into someplace else, to challenge your normal status quo of, I'm just doing my 9 to 5, or like corporate, 6 to 4, 6 to 6, to
Right.
get into something that's better for yourself. Challenge those comfortable patterns to get into something that's a little uncomfortable, that's actually going to be even better for you.
Dave, you talk about, especially in the military, where you're doing maybe something you don't enjoy doing, or something um, that you are ready to move on from. But and I've shared this before. For me, it was a challenge as well. Even though I had this mindset of, I want to continue to grow, I want to do something different. I still had that locked in the back of my mind. I still don't know who I am without this. And so it still was a challenge for me, even with my mindset. If I want to do things, I want to continue to grow, I want to continue to learn, it still was a challenge for me. So people out there are saying, how do I do that? It takes, taking small steps every day. Like Dave said, he recognized, okay, I stepped one step outside of my comfort zone or outside of my pattern. this is it for me today. Tomorrow I may do something different, but that's the approach you have to take is take those baby steps. You know, don't put such a huge burden on yourself to say, well, I got to get from point A to point B really quick. That right there could be setting yourself up for failure. So just if you're thinking, you know, I'm in that situation where I'm not sure, I don't know what to do, then do something. We always talk about this moving forward, doing something to help you move forward is the key. And again, it doesn't have to be this huge leap. It may just be a baby step, but just keep that in mind. As long as you're making progress, then you're in good shape. It's when you refuse to move or refuse to take a step or refuse to move forward is when you may run into difficulties.
Yeah, and you know, again, going back to the personal, professional, and career development, you can apply these to your personal relationships too. You know, if you're locked in this comfortable pattern and it's not a positive pattern, challenge it. Challenge that pattern and break away from that negative situation. Or if you're in a positive situation at work, break that comfortableness to take on that extra perspective or that extra learning to get you that promotion, to get you that lateral, to get you
Right.
that recognition, or to get you that internal certification that's going to, you know, break the doors wide open for you. Go to those networking events, go to your internal customers and talk to them and get their feedback, you know, instead of just locking yourself in your team and say, well, I'm doing great on my team, my customers, I'm providing for them. What could you break that comfortable, challenge that comfortable pattern to go talk to them and see what could you do to make their job even better that's still within your wheelhouse or within your lane.
Right. You know, uh, to sum it up to a degree, a lot of this comes with, you know, getting to know people.
Mm-hmm.
It's about building those relationships, whether it's out at a concert or at a networking event or in your immediate teams. It's about that human element, that personal personal engagement versus again, I know what you do at work and that's all you know.
Mm-hmm.
It still comes down to those personal relationships are what helps you move forward. All right. So Dave is again trying to nonchalantly let me know that we got 2 minutes left. So with that, Dave, do you have any final comments on challenging comfortable patterns?
I would say that it's going to be challenging to challenge those comfortable patterns.
Yeah.
But once you do, and you come out on the other side, you're going to feel a weight that's been lifted and it's going to feel comfortable. It's just a natural part of the process that, you know, procrastination or delay or whatever, because it is comfortable. Once you push through that, that weight's going to be lifted and you're going to realize, wow, I am able to do that. I am able to go into a room and talk to a person. I am able to go talk to my supervisor or an internal customer or XYZ and go to this class or, you know, research this, whatever it is. You're going to realize that you can do those things if you put your mind to it. If you just challenge those patterns, you're going to come out on the other side and you're going to feel better. You're going to, about yourself for it.
Wow, Dave, that was a pretty good summary of you know things we touched on today, and there's probably stuff we could you know continue with this conversation, but Dave is right. It's challenging that status quo, challenging. This feels comfortable. Is it too comfortable? Should I be pushing myself beyond this comfort? And I think that's what it comes down to: measuring that level of comfort. And you know, you see it or hear it, read about it. The fact that if you're uncomfortable, then you're probably growing. But if you're comfortable, then you might have reached a place of stagnation. You're not developing, you're not growing. So really think about that. If everything is hunky dory, everything is great, then maybe it's the time to consider. I might want to challenge myself and make it a little more challenging or difficult. So, with that, again, we want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. As always, we really uh, enjoy doing this. So, please, if there's any topics you want to hear about or things you want to see on the podcast, then please let us know. Our information is in the description below. And as always, we want you to continue being your not so ordinary you.